This is exclusive with me, Shawan. Ladies and gentlemen, we have spoken at length about what really happened on 7th of October when the world essentially witnessed the monstrosity of the Hamas terrorists. Over the last few weeks, what we have also witnessed an attempt that has been made by a section to try and romanticize with this kind of inhuman, barbaric behavior of the Hamas. Can there be a ceasefire to begin with? And more importantly, how exactly can you have any sort of dialogue with a terrorist group? Tonight, we bring to you a very special guest, a chief sergeant, a member of Israeli rescue unit. He's also part of the IDF's combat rescue unit. The reason why we decided here at Republic TV to essentially reach out to the Israeli special forces is also to understand what's really happening on the ground. And when we talk about the monstrosity of Hamas, it is Chief Sergeant who's joining us right now, perhaps are the first responders, the first to witness what really happened on 7th of October. Chief Sergeant, thank you very much for joining us on this special broadcast with Republic TV. Let me straight away begin by asking you. On 7th of October, as I understand, you were with your fiancé, part of the reserve force. You were called in for the duty. In fact, you as well as your team reached out to that first kibbutz which witnessed the massacre that was created by the Hamas. Why don't you help us understand or recount for our viewers what is it that you witnessed the very moment you reached Nagant kibbutz?
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me on the show. I have to say these are very dire times for Israel, and I feel as for humanity itself, because I think no one in the civilized world can imagine such horrors as were being conducted by the terrorists of Hamas on October 7th and the days afterwards. I have to say, on a personal matter, the first time I understood what we are facing, who is the enemy we are actually facing here, because as a paramedic in a national rescue unit of Israel, I had the privilege to treat Syrians that were fleeing from Syria, from the refugee war, from the civil war. Turkey, we treated injured people in the earthquake there. Palestinians from Gaza that needed medical care in Israel. I have personally treated people from all these countries. So to imagine that someone, any person in the world, is capable of conducting such horrors is just unexplainable. So the first time I understood is on that October 7th, Saturday, which is actually one of the most holy days for the Jewish people all over the world. And my team and I, we were called in. I was with my fiance at her parents in that morning because of the festival, because of the holiday. And I was called in with my team. And after an hour, Israel is a small country. To get from Tel Aviv, the center of Israel, to the Gaza Strip is a matter of less than 2 hours driving. And when we get to Nahal Oz, which is a kibbutz on that area, which actually in Hebrew is translated into the river of strength, of courage, Nahal Oz. And we arrive there, and among the sceneries, the terrible sceneries when we see in Nahal Oz and in other kibbutzes, there are other agricultural settlements, I enter a home of a family. And while we're looking for injured people, civilians to rescue, as we are in combat there by terrorists that are still holding houses on their own people living there as hostages. And I open with my team one of the rooms of that house, and I see two girls lying, one on a bed, one on the floor in their own bedroom. And the girl, 14, 15 years old teenager, she's lying on her bed, on the floor, on her stomach. Her pants are pulled down, and she is half naked. Her legs are spread out, wide open, and there are remains of sperm on her back. Someone executed her right after he brutally raped her while just shooting her in the head. She was left there to, lie in the blood of her in a puddle of blood. And that is the first time I actually, like this, slap in the face. I understand we're not acting against terrorists here. We are acting against savages, inhumane savages.
Chief Sergeant, I also want to ask you this question with regards to the hostage situation, because over the last few weeks I spoke to several family members, some who still do not have an idea about their loved ones who have been taken into captivity by the Hamas. You actually also witnessed a situation like that. Hostages were taken in. Could you help us understand what is it that you witness in terms of, perhaps resolving a hostage situation?
So what happened in October 7th, as thousands of terrorists crossed the border between Gaza and Israel. Now it's important to understand that Hamas is in control, complete control of the Gaza Strip. Israel is not in control for many years, for over a decade, in the Gaza Strip. It's important to understand. So Hamas opened the borders and sent thousands of terrorists on its behalf. And it's important to understand also that the Palestinians in Gaza democratically chosen Hamas, which since then, of course, is keeping them as a vicious dictatorship. And their target, among many targets of spreading horror in the country of Israel, is to get to the nearby agricultural settlements and cities and to just kidnap as much as possible bodies, people, children, babies. They don't really care. They don't see the difference. And within a few hours, they just drag them back into the Gaza Strip, into the tunnels that they created for years to hold them in there so we can't reach and save them. But yet, what I'm focusing on here, we have to understand, by the time teams as my own team and other Israeli soldiers unit from the Israeli Defense Forces reach those settlements to try and save the people living there, the terrorists were holding them hostages in their own homes, so we can't, to try and avoid us, eliminating them, and because we got there so fast, and there was severe, intense combat within the neighborhoods of these settlements to try and save the people within the houses from the kidnappers, the terrorists that are holding them. Many we weren't able to. Many were slaughtered in their own beds. They were just executed. So many bodies of people that were cuffed with their hands behind their back and their eyes, with a scarf around them, and they were shot in the head, lying to death on the floor of their own kitchen. So many we weren't able, unfortunately. We didn't get there fast enough.
Right. Chief Sergeant, since you've also been there as the first responder in some situations, you've witnessed a hostage crisis that unfolded before your eyes. Could you also give us a sense of the kind of weaponry that was largely used by the Hamas terrorists? Because what many do not understand today is the fact that this is not something that has happened overnight. This is something that was being pre-planned over a period of time. And the very fact that Hamas, a terrorist group, could not have been equipped in the manner that they have had it not been for few countries providing them with the kind of weapons that they have used. Could you help us break down the kind of weapon that was actually used by the Hamas terrorists?
So Hamas has been planning this eventually for years, and because the amount of weaponry the terrorists entered the border with Gaza into Israel is immense. We're talking about thousands of rifles and RPGs, and we have to understand, well, Israel has been living for years under shooting rockets and missiles from Hamas from the Gaza Strip, and they used anything that they had to kill people, including running over elderlies in the kibbutz with pickup trucks, which they drive from Gaza into Israel. We're talking about shooting people in their own houses, brutally butchering them, shooting RPGs at vehicles. And I'm sorry for this brutal description but I have to say, because it's important to understand who we're dealing with. As we were going through one of the kibbutzes there to try and find more people to rescue and treat, one of my teammates, he realized he saw a dog that was barking near a trash can. And we stopped by there, and he opened that trash can and he pulled out of the garbage a baby, perhaps maybe not even more than a year-old baby that was multiple times stabbed all over his body and tossed into the garbage. So it doesn't, anything these terrorists have in their hands, they will use to kill. And if they could do it brutally, as we saw the Arabic sentences that were written on entrances to houses. There, graffiti that is written by the blood of the people that were living in those houses.
Chief Sergeant, I've also witnessed some amount of skepticism, especially in the Western world right now, some even calling for a ceasefire at this point in time. And to be in your shoes right now perhaps is the most difficult task, the most difficult job. I know it's difficult for you to even describe what you witnessed unfolding before your eyes, but it is important that the world notices what you all are going through. And not just Israelis, but the entire community, the entire world needs to come together. Hence, I'm asking you a difficult question right now. May have been very, very difficult for you to even describe it. But what is it that the world does not know? We have spoken about the monstrosity of the Hamas terrorists. Is there something, even till date, that the world really does not know? Something that you have witnessed before your eyes the time that you reached the kibbutz, and which is important that today you must tell the world that this is what you witnessed.
So this might be a little bit intimidating, but I invite whoever around the world that has skeptical thoughts about the ISIS monstrous organization we are dealing with to try and imagine what it is to be living for years under rockets and missiles that are shot, not, somewhere in the world that you hear in the news, at your own home, to be running with your siblings, your children, in the middle of the night to a bomb shelter that is built in every house in Israel. It's important to understand that in every house in Israel, there is a bomb shelter because this enemy. And for years, Israel has been tolerating this. And when you get to a step that not only your house is being missiled for years, your neighbors, I want to emphasize that Israel is a small country. Gaza Strip is a 2-hour drive from where I live, the whole Gaza Strip. And to reach people that are my friends, people I know from college, from school, who live in villages near the Gaza Strip, and you see how your friends, your relatives of friends, have been butchered and raped and brutally, unholy, brutalized their bodies. And I would ask anyone who has skepticism about what is going on, I would ask, how do you think would be a proportional feedback for such acts? I mean, this is something that if you don't have the feeling that your own home, your own family, your own brothers and sisters are in a death situation, you can't even start to begin to understand what enemy we're facing. This is ISIS even more worse, because we're talking in our own homes, not in some point in the world. And I want to say, John, honestly, I don't wish this feeling to anyone anywhere. But this is reality we are facing with. And if we don't stop them, I think we are going to see this happening more and more over the world.
Right. Chief Sergeant, one last question before I let you go. I know this is not easy for anyone in Israel at this point in time. You've seen this war happening many a times. In the last 15 years, at least 5 wars that have taken place with the Hamas. What is it that you would say is very different this time? What is it that they were really aiming for? And why, as your Prime Minister says, that it is time to wipe off Hamas from the face of earth?
No, I could only talk about from my heart and on behalf of myself, because I'm no general and no diplomat. But there was in Israeli, in citizens of Israel, there was this hope. Israel left the Gaza Strip years ago, hoping this will be the Singapore of the Middle East. That is what I was raised on. And we had this hope that the people in Gaza, and mostly the government, which is Hamas, as elected, will drop off the attempts to ruin and destroy Israel and look for peace. And, this time it just clashed into our face, because as Israel has ever been looking to make peace with its neighbors, as we've done with Jordan, and with Egypt and with lately with the Emirates. And at this time, we're talking. It's not only exploded in our face that we put our moral and our values, looking for peace, on our neighbors. This is a massacre, the biggest massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust. If we equivalent this, with the United States, because Israel is such a small country, we're talking about almost 50,000 people dead. If we would equivalent this to to his American population. So I want people, if I could explain, and people to understand, this massacre has been linked to almost every family in Israel. This is how we feel. This is a moral, a national, a devastating period of time.
Well, thank you very much, Chief Sergeant, for joining us on Republic TV and also sharing your devastating experience. I know this has not been an easy moment for anyone. We stand with you in these difficult times. We're hoping that every person who's watching this interview would now realize what exactly is Israel really fighting at this point in time. Thank you very much for joining us.